a number of programs focused on that middle age school to high school and beyond to help educate and provide, curriculums in school, in youth organizations, and communities that serve that population to create greater public awareness, education, and guidance on what's the difference between healthy and unhealthy relationships and behaviors and attitudes. Because if we don't stunt it at that age, then it's going to continue to perpetuate into the adulthood lifespan.
So as part of your organization Saving Promise, you, I think in October, because it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, right? You started the Don't Just Give a Damn campaign or initiative. What is that about specifically?
So don't just give a damn. And, I love, I'm a storyteller by trade in terms of my work as an author.
Perfect. It's perfect for an interview.
Yeah, you tell stories, right? Because what does that really mean? And so that came about. I live in DC, and Saving Promise is headquartered in DC. And I was having coffee one day with a digital media strategist. He developed the digital media, videos, film, etc. And I asked him to this meeting because I wanted to find a way to tell the story about domestic violence in a compelling, engaging way. And so his name is James Williams. And so we're sitting at Starbucks on I believe, 2nd and Pennsylvania Avenue. And I said to him, James, is pretty much what I just said to you at the top of this call, Beatrice. I said, I am in awe of the different visible movements and things out there like Me Too and all the different like Time's Up and all the different campaigns that have come over the last few years and prior to that. And I'm in awe of all the, media coverage and everything that's happening right now that, we just had come out of a round of, controversy of media stories coming out of the White House. And, obviously we had the Me Too movement media and everything pertaining to that. And we had media about all of these different celebrities that are now being, held accountable for their behaviors. And I said, and I think that's well and good. And people are finally paying attention. And this is the most that we've ever seen. This level of discussion around domestic and sexual violence. But you know what? I'm tired of people just talking about it. I want to see us do something because we don't want this to fade. We don't want Me Too to fade in a year or two. We don't want the controversy that's coming from all of these different things to fade. We need to do something to take action. What's the point in talking about it but not doing something? So James says to me, turns to me and he goes, so LY, what you're saying is you don't want people to don't just give a damn, but do something. So I said, that's it. That is it. That's exactly it. And I am going to launch a campaign using those exact words. Don't just give a damn, do something. Because we all give a damn, right? We all care or want to care. We all express our opinions. We all express Me Too. We all express, outrage at some of the stories that we're hearing coming out. We all feel sad when we hear about some poor woman who was beaten to death by her partner. We all feel sorry when we see a child like Promise laying on the bed as her mother lay next to her being strangled. We all hear stories like my own with a gun to my head, but it's time we just don't just give a damn, that we do something. That we actually take action. And so the Don't Just Give a Damn campaign is just that. We're asking people to not only first say that they don't just give a damn, but to show us that they don't by taking action. And we asked them to do 3 things. One is to share with us by writing down on a poster or a piece of paper or whatever, your pledge. I don't just give a damn, I X. What is your X? Your X could be, I'm going to teach my students because I'm a teacher about healthy relationships. I'm going to talk to my daughter, or I don't just give a damn, I'm going to talk to my son. Or I don't just give a damn. I'm a pastor at a church. I'm going to talk to my congregation. Or I don't just give a damn. I'm an employer. I'm going to educate my employees. So we want them to share that pledge, write it down, take a quick selfie. We all got cell phones now with with with, with cameras, and take a selfie and just send it to us so that we could post it on Instagram and build people, a community of people. It's not about sending it to us. It's about becoming a part of this community of people that are taking the pledge to do something. And then once you send it, actually act on that pledge and go out and it, you know, Beatrice, what I say to people is that it's those small actions that people can take that will make the world of a difference. Because if you got, let's say, you don't just give a damn is I'm going to get 10 of my girlfriends together and we're going to have tea at my home on Saturday and we're all going to talk about it. Even if it doesn't happen to us, we're just going to talk about what we feel about it or educate each other about it. So if it does happen to us or happen to somebody in our family or our community, we know what to do. And we're just going to get together for an hour. So my I don't just give a damn is I don't just give a damn. I'm going to get 10 of my girlfriends together. Now, if you get 10 of those women, and let's say other women do that or other men do that and say, I'm going to get 10 of my buddies together and talk about it, or 5 of my buddies, or I'm going to talk to my son. Imagine how we can change this terrible public health pandemic because people took small action. It is not organizations like Saving Promise or the national other organizations out there or even the Me Too movement that is going to change this issue. It is people taking small actions in their families and communities.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That is so true. And I think, you know, in times like these, we sometimes rely on just social media, you know, activism and think that we did something just because we made a post, you know. But I think it's really doing something in our communities.
And those small actions that add up.
Yeah.
You know, that add up. You got 10 people that show up at that tea, 10 girlfriends or 5 girlfriends or 2 girlfriends. If even half of them went now and took action and then they took action and then it snowballs from there, we can change this crisis.
Where can people send those things to? Do you have an email address where they can send it to?
Yes. And so they could send it to Don't Just Give a Damn at savingpromise.org. Or they could just visit our website at savingpromise.org on our homepage. The first thing they're going to see is the video. And we kicked it off with, for the first time ever, Beatrice, I revealed the 5 generations of mothers and daughters in my family. I've never done that in this way. And so we kicked it off by me not just giving a damn, but sharing, breaking the silence that now I want you to meet these women that were in my family. I want you to see my grandmother and my mother and my daughter and myself and Promise. And it's actually narrated by Promise. She's now 11. In fact, she lives with me. I have custody of her, so I get to see her. And how she responds to something like this. And so I would encourage people to visit savingpromise.org and go to the Don't Just Give a Damn link. And there's instructions around how to submit their pledge. And the second thing we're asking people to do is to kind of share it with their friends and family. And also, if they can give $1 so that we can continue to raise funds to keep this campaign going and keep other programs and take those programs into the schools, into youth organizations, into our communities to help us to continue to prevent domestic violence and sexual violence.
Now, I have one more question concerning intersectionality, because we all know that women are affected more by intimate partner violence than men. We know that trans women are affected more than cis women. We know that Black women are affected more than white women. So, I mean, of course, some of this might be related to increasing reporting in these populations. But what I want to know is, does your project look at the specifics of specific communities and then also the outreach that can be done to help these individuals?
You raise a very good point, Beatrice, for two reasons. One is that domestic and sexual violence is colorless, um, raceless, economic, um, statusless, um, educational list, because it affects us all. And however, to your point, there is evidence that it often happens more often in some communities and certain races and ethnicities and cultures than others. And one of them that you named, for example, in the LGBTQ community, there's a lot of intimate partner and sexual violence that happens. And then when you take a community like that is already depressed from, being who they are and standing in their truth. Now they're in addition to having to deal with those type of biases, they're now having to come forward and express the shame of an intimate partner or sexual violence incident. And so I think it's important that we as a community kind of understand that these issues, domestic and sexual violence, are colorless. And that it affects every gender, every race, every social economic status, every education, every religious preference, every sexual preference, every gender is no longer. And one thing I am trying to really build in my messaging around Saving Promise and when I speak is it's no longer just a woman's issue. This is a public health issue. Yes, more women are abused than men, clearly so. And especially, in areas like physical violence. But we also have to acknowledge that until we begin to treat this as a major global public health issue, we're going to continue to try to address this from only one angle, and we're not going to be able to break the vicious cycle.
Yeah. You said something that I find very interesting. You talked about shame. And maybe that's a question that is impossible to answer, but I always find it so shocking and just outrageous that we live in a culture where being victimized is something that people feel shame about or told that they have to feel shame about. Why do you think is that? Why do we feel ashamed when we are victimized?
Because of one word, judgment. Judgment. We're ashamed oftentimes because of the way we might be judged. And I use judge very loosely because judge, in that word judgment, comes, for example, a woman who might be in an abusive relationship with her partner or spouse. She has children, she has a career. She's ashamed to tell somebody because she doesn't want to be judged or, accosted because she decided to stay. There was that a few years ago when the whole Ray Rice thing came out and his then fiance and now wife decided to stay. There was a whole hashtag around why women stay.
Yeah.
And below that hashtag was the real answers to why women stay. Women oftentimes stay not only just because they're ashamed, but because they don't want to break up their families. They might be financially independent, dependent on their spouse. They, oftentimes, when women go to court, and I've been there on that other side of the court with my daughter, and I've been there on that other side of the court with my daughter's father, where a judge was ready to turn her over. He had just gotten out of prison. I'd been raising my daughter for 12 years. He comes out of prison, and the judge was about to turn over full custody to him. And maybe for whatever reason, maybe he had his own gripe about the system, right? Maybe he was in it. But and so the shame also comes in that they don't want to break up their families or have their children stripped from them. A lot of women don't go into shelters because many shelters can't afford to house or don't have the space to house their children